I'm Darian the Eclectic, and today we're back in continuing our story plotting series. In particular, this is the Hero's Journey Part 2. So let's get into it. All right, in the Hero's Journey Part 1, we covered the first 6 points. And up until this point, we're at the meat and potatoes of the story, the tests, trials, fun and games, meeting the enemies, meeting the allies, the kind of heart of the story that was promised as the adventure to the reader. But now we're getting to number 7, which is the approach of the Inmost cave. And this is where Frodo and his team are approaching the Elven realm. This is where they arrive and they get new information. They're able to prepare, and they're about to set off on that last leg of the journey into Mordor, into the big thing. They're approaching the end of the tasks, the goal that they set out for at the beginning of the story. And in this part, we see them getting new information. We see them learn, maybe having things changed for them. We see them preparing and testing. We see fighting and conflict. The team is changing up. All of these different things are happening as they get ready to set foot into the most dangerous part of their mission. Number 8 is the Ordeal. So this is the major setback. As they are preparing and training for the last leg of their journey, this is something that happens that really upsets their plan and their team. So in this case, this is when we see Boromir attempt to take the ring from Frodo. And this leads to the dissolution of the team in general and the breakup. So it's a huge setback at this point. They need this team. They need each other to get through this. And that trust has been broken by, the attempted taking of the ring by Boromir. Now Frodo has to make a choice on how he's going to move forward. Number 9 is the reward. And so this is the point where it's called the reward in the hero's journey, but it can also be known as seizing of the sword. And really what that means is this is the point when the character decides they have to dig deep and pull something out of themselves they didn't know was there. In this case, we see Frodo making the decision to go on alone. Even though he is afraid, even though he knows there's a high possibility he's going to die and he's going to fail, he decides that it is so important that he still must go on alone, even if he doesn't have his team there to help him, which up until this point, the team has basically been carrying him. And so the implications of this to the reader are that the likelihood of him failing and dying is very, very big. How is he going to do this without his team there to support him? And we also see Sam deciding not to let him go on his own, which is demonstrating that friendship and that, camaraderie, that love for each other that they have. And so it also helps with maybe the B story in that they had this relationship, they have this friendship, and even though things have changed completely, they still have each other. And Sam, beloved Sam, is willing to sacrifice his life as well in order to make sure Frodo completes his task because he loves his friend. So this is the point where the character digs deep and makes sure that even if they have lost all resources, they are still going to try to achieve that task. Number 10 is the road back. And in the hero's journey, this is where we move from Act 2 to Act 3. This is where the big finale, the big end of the story is occurring. In The Lord of the Rings, this happens in subsequent books. It doesn't happen in the first book. We see Frodo and Sam heading off into Mordor and beginning the end of the story. This is where those finales are going to occur, where we're going to see him either succeed or fail. Number 11 in the hero's journey is the resurrection. And this is the climax of the story arc as a whole. So again, in Lord of the Rings, this happens in later books, not in the first book. But we see for the resurrection, Sam and Frodo going through and facing their final challenges, facing the biggest challenges that they have, which ultimately culminates in Frodo being in Mount Doom and throwing the ring down. This is where they succeed or fail in their task. And number 12, the last point in the hero's journey, is the return with the Elixir. And really what this is the character returning to their normal life, having changed completely. We see Frodo return to the Shire after completing his task, after everything he's gone through, and he is a completely changed hobbit. And ultimately, he's unable to return to his ordinary world. He's unable to stay in the Shire and and eventually leaves to the Undying Lands and leaves Sam behind to take care of the Shire. So in the culmination of this entire story, we see the character arc and development of Frodo, ending with him being a completely different hobbit and unable to return to the serene, happy-go-lucky, no worries, no responsibility life of the Shire, and instead having to leave and go on and contend. Now, again, we talked a little bit about themes in previous videos, but this one to me is interesting because there are unintended themes that come up in this, right? Obviously, the Lord of the Rings is an allegory for war, and we see the aftermath of that in Frodo in having to leave, which, people who have gone to war and really had to deal with horrible things have PTSD, and they find it very difficult to return to a normal, relaxed life because of everything that happened. And so it is interesting to see how that's reflected in this story, and whether intentional or not, likely some intention behind it. We know that that was put into the story and has been pulled from the story in later analysis. And so know that you can do that with yours as well. You can use it as an allegory for these big things that are happening in current events and in history and in your own life. And know that it doesn't have to be that way either. It can be something you edit in later or strengthen as you discover what those themes are in your story. And it can also be something that, you don't intentionally put in there at all. You can write a happy, fun, go lucky story. You can write an adventure story without anything too deep, but know that those themes are going to be present because you as the writer have these emotions, these thoughts, these things in the back of your mind that are going to make it into your story. So interesting to analyze these different stories and see what comes out of them, and interesting to see what develops in your own. Again, don't try to intentionally put this in there if it's not something that you're comfortable doing, and if it makes you get stuck in your story, don't worry about it. The point is to get your story down and edit it and see how it evolves over time. That was the hero's journey. Now, if you're interested in me continuing this plotting series, there are several more that we can cover. And if you enjoyed this, please let me know down in the comments below. Put your opinions on the hero's journey and on Lord of the Rings in general with this plot, and I will see you in other videos. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you're informed every time I record a video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.